Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Matt Townsend Show. I am your host, Matt Townsend, your coach, your guide on the side. We do what we can on our show every single day of the week to help you and your loved ones grow healthy, happy lives, to take your life back a little bit, try to find some hope in this sometimes hopeless world, and bring you a little sunshine is our goal. Welcome to the program, everybody. Today is going to be a special approach. I think we're going to, I don't know, it's so tough. Now, in this presidential election, all you seem to be hearing is jobs, 8.2%. Romney can't do jobs. Obama doesn't do jobs, blah, blah, blah. Well, the reality is there's a lot of people that need jobs right now, and they're struggling. And it's interesting. It's no longer, it's not like, the lazy people don't have jobs. These are people that are really trying hard to get jobs. They're educated. Some of them are, these brand new college students that invested all this time and energy to go get the degree. They were so excited to get out and start their great life. And now they're stalled and they don't have a job to anywhere in sight. And so today on the show, we want to give you some ideas, some tools. We're going to try to bring in one of our experts, an expert in human resources and human development, who's going to give us a bunch of tools and ideas for how to get a job in this crazy market. It's hard. So if you're a parent out there and you have your children living at home and they're not getting jobs and they're adults, they're out there, they should have a job by now and they just can't find one, stick around. Today is the day for that. We're going to get into those ideas. We're going to give you some also some other ideas of where the jobs are and where they're not. Plus, we're going to have a rant from one of our producers, Bryce Tobin, who's just going to go on a rant on how hard it is to get a job. So now, don't be afraid, because the reality of not being able to find a job right now is you could always fall back to what Daniel Suelo did. Now, you may have seen this article in the Atlantic magazine, but Daniel Suelo basically has given up on money. He's just not doing money anymore. Wouldn't that be great? Now, neither are your adult children that don't have jobs. They're not doing money either, but they don't want to not do money. This is a story about a man who is homeless by choice, and he's doing it basically to live free in America. His basic premise is this. He says, our whole society is designed so that you have to have money. Daniel Suelo says, you have to be a part of the capitalist system. It's illegal to live outside of it. So Suelo has basically defied the laws. His primary residence is in the canyons near Arches National Park in Utah, where he has lived in a dozen caves tucked into sandstone nooks. In the fall of 2002, 2 years after quitting money, he just walked away from money, he homesteaded a majestic alcove high on a cliff, 200 feet across and 50 feet tall, and he just decided he's done. He created his own grotto on national parks land. So if your children are having a hard time finding a job, I guess send them after Daniel Suelo to dig out a grotto somewhere on the national parks land. But listen to what he did. The Suelo's grotto was a 2-hour walk from pavement. He settled in for a long haul. He chipped at the rock around to create a wide, flat bed, lined it up with tarps and pads and sleeping bags that had been left out in someone's trash. He built wood-burning stoves out of old tins. He learned to forage for cactus pods, yucca seeds, wildflowers, and watercress that grew near the creek. He drank from a spring, bathed in the creek, and from a chunk of talus, he carved a statue, a ponderous head like a monolith from Easter Island. He's in heaven. The guy's in heaven, and he's given up money. Is this what we're going to have to do if we can't find jobs? Are we just going to have to give up money? Now, that was all great until after 2 years, after several years, a ranger from the Bureau of Land Management, Lord Vader appears, and he comes to get Suelo out of the park. Now, Suelo had violated the 14-day limit. He was only allowed there for 14 days, and Suelo was taken into custody. He was basically arrested and was written a ticket for $120. Which he didn't have any money to pay. So he ended up going to court. Actually, he and the ranger, they felt bad because the ranger actually felt like he was doing a great job protecting the environment. By the way, Suelo, the man's name, also is Spanish for soil. So what do you do? Now, Suelo, by the way, went and got to do some time. He didn't want to go to jail, so he went to a shelter and basically taught children about Brer Rabbit and the Briar Patch. So, folks, what is happening to us? Oh, interesting thing, though. He started his little journey of giving up money back in Georgia, but he had a friend getting married here in Utah, but he didn't have a ride, and he had just so happened to get his tax return. And the tax return basically, it was pretty funny. The tax return was $500, and he needed a ride, didn't know how he could get to Utah. So he went, I guess, and leased a Mercedes-Benz for $500-ish. Basically, he had to just make no money down, first payment or whatever, little payment. Got in this Mercedes, drove it all the way across the country to Santa Fe, New Mexico, all the way around the Southwest, and top down, picking up hitchhikers the whole way. Eventually just dropped off the car, I guess, at a Mercedes dealer somewhere and said, I'm done with my lease, and then walked into the outdoors. So I'm not recommending that be the way you do it. If you are going to go basically give up money, I guess that's one way to do it. It might be better, though, if we could figure out how to get a job. And it's hard. Today's economy is crazy. I had a guy, I was at a speech last night, a young man, 29 years old, a master's degree, almost finishing his master's, comes up to me and says, look, what am I supposed to do? I've had 3 internships. I almost have a master's degree, and there's no jobs. And as he's sitting there in an internship, he's got, I think, till December in this internship, and then that's it. And he's begging the HR director there, please, is there some kind of job? And the guy says, you know what, you're great. We're getting such good feedback on you. We just don't have any jobs. What do you do? And he's trained, he's skilled, but these people that used to be able to get a job because, there was always openings, and there aren't. The times are filled up. So we're going to be talking to Todd Davis, who's an expert in he's an HR expert. He works with Franklin Covey Company and is the chief people officer and the operations officer. He's a great man, knows recruiting, knows HR, knows what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing. So you grab your kids, you grab your husband or anybody you know that needs a job, and you get them near your speakers, because we are going to pick his brain. What would a senior executive in a training company and an HR executive, what would he suggest you do? What are we supposed to be doing? What should all of these college students do that don't quite have maybe the right degree? It's a tough time, and it's not enough, I guess, just to sit and hope that our elected leaders might do something about it. Maybe what we need to do now is we need to figure out if there are any tricks, or just what makes the difference. Interesting thing about Todd Davis, before we bring him on, is he really is a guy that was pivotal in my employment of becoming a speaker. And I'll introduce that story when we come back from the break, and we introduce our visitor, Todd Davis, Executive Vice President, Chief People and Operations Officer at Franklin Covey. Stick with us, folks. Get your pad of paper. We're going to give you the tools to get a job. You're listening to the Matt Townsend Show right here on Sirius XM 143 BYU Radio. Welcome back, everybody, to the Matt Townsend Show. We're talking about getting a job. Not just for you necessarily, but maybe there's a way to get your children a job. We're just hearing that there's a lot of families with their adult children still living at home because they just can't get a job. Now, they got degrees, a lot of them. And we're not talking about the people that just aren't interested in getting a job, or we're talking about the ones that really desperately want one. Those even that have gone out and been retrained after their first job, after they maybe lost a job, those that are just getting out of schools, trade schools, colleges, universities. How do we get a job? Now, we've got to introduce one of our producers. Bryce Tobin has a lot on his mind that he would just love to share with us. So this is the Bryce is Right.
Look, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but I'm about to rant. This is the Bryce is Right. After a high school degree, is my education through? Heck no, I've got debt to accrue. Besides, think about it, I'm graduating in May. Do I want to work or do I want to delay? My guidance counselor asked, have you thought of a career? No, I'll be in school for the next 10 years. Don't rush me! Dealing with whiny kids is hard. So what are we whining about? We spend all this time, money, and emotional stability getting anywhere from 1 to 3 degrees in the name of getting a job. Yeah, good thing the economy tanked while we were all in the middle of getting these degrees. And it's all 6s no matter whether we stick with it or drop out. Or at least it looks that way. Now, nobody likes a whiner, but let's stop for a second and let's look into why kids are whiny. If you're a college kid, I feel safe assuming that you've been told by several people for several years that the most reliable way to be successful in multiple facets of your life is to get a degree. Why else would you go through all this? And the advice makes sense because this has been true from about the 1950s to 2007-ish. But we've had the rug pulled out from under us, and we don't live in a traditional economy where we can trade with things like cows, chickens, and frogs. If you don't have any money, you're hosed. We aren't making any money, and that is very distressing. So we graduate and our quest to find a job begins. A big step is the resume. What a shallow and deadly balancing act this is. Do I keep it sparse or packed? More than 1 page or 2. I want them to read it, but if it's too short, it will look empty. But if it's too long, they are less likely to read all of it, or worse, not read it at all. Then do I only include stuff that is pertinent? Do I include the dog walking that I did when I was 12? What font should I use? Too simple and they'll be bored by it and the other 400 resumes they received this morning. How much color should I include, or should I include any? Then once it's done, you pore over it for hours looking for any spelling errors, adjusting phrases to make things look a bit better, changing spacing to draw the eye here or there, and all this guarantees is an ulcer. And in a perfect world, people would read these, but welcome to Earth. There are people who will pay more attention to the amount of color or the quality of the paper than actual content. The other dilemma we kids face is experience. You've heard this before. Employers want experience, but I can't get experience until I get a job, but the jobs need experience, and on and on and on. And it bothers me how dismissive people are about this, because it does in fact get worse. Desperation kicks in, so you take some dead-end job that does not fit your interest or pay very well, just so you can pay rent and get some food to eat. All the while you are applying for jobs, but you're no longer augmenting your resume. Experience is good, I guess, but experience in a specific field is what an employer is actually looking for. You're only really accumulating laps around the sun stuck in a job that you don't like or want that is sucking your life away. It doesn't matter if you're 22 or 40. If you lack experience, you lack experience. Good news though, all of your debt has been growing and growing. Aren't you lucky? Let's get real. Other than the economy being rough, it's an employer's market. You guys have lots of candidates to choose from, lots of qualification, lots of experience, and a lot of them are really desperate and will pretty much take whatever they can get. Can you see how it's a little rough on a doe-eyed kid fresh out of academia? Who knows what the future holds, but don't worry. Today we're going to talk about this and help you figure out what to do or what to tell some young people and get them to quit whining. All right, I'm out. And remember, don't forget to be awesome.
Good work. The Bryce is right. Finding a job, tough stuff, as Bryce so eloquently explained to us. Now we're going to bring on an expert, Todd Davis, Executive Vice President, Chief People and Operations Officer at Franklin Covey, who they're a human development leadership training company. And Todd's just a great man. He's been doing HR kind of related fields, training fields for over 26 years. We wanted to bring him in and pick his brain. Todd, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Matt.
It's so good to have you because jobs, I mean, so you're sitting here in a large organization you have to keep it staffed, but there's just not enough openings. Are you noticing that?
There are more people than openings. That's true.
Are you seeing that?
That's true.
Do you, what are you thinking? Because you've got to be seeing some pretty well-trained people now. You've got to be seeing a really good crop of potential employees. You just don't have openings.
Yeah, there's certainly an ebb and flow in the pool of candidates that are out there. And right now, as you said, we still have openings. We're growing as most organizations are, but there are dozens of candidates, hundreds of candidates for every opening. And the thing I like to remind people is someone's getting the jobs.
Yeah.
So there are things that you can do to put yourself ahead of the lead of the pack or the head of the pack and get the job. People
and that's what I want to do is kind of chip away some of the things that we should be doing. Also want to get into are there just certain fields that are less open? Are there certain areas that just are harder? I mean, where are the jobs? Is it the same amount of jobs there used to be? Are there just fewer Are there just too many? What is the deal? Because here I sit. The reason why this is such a big deal for me is I have all of these college-trained people around me. Mm-hmm. They've all got degrees. Some have got masters. And we were just sitting in a meeting where one of the people in our group, who's a producer, is an accountant, has an accounting background. I think like a master's in accounting. And she's going out. She's got like 10 job offers and is out there ready to go. And she's lined up ready to go. A lot of our people here, we have one person we may have on the show later who has an English master's degree, and all of the English masters are working. And then there's some degrees that just aren't getting jobs. Is that just traditional? Is that just normal?
Well, I cringe when you introduce me and say we've got an expert here. I don't know that I'm an expert any more than anybody else is, but in my experience, people are, as we're slowly coming out of this recession, I think companies and businesses are proceeding ahead with caution. Yeah. But I'm seeing more and more positions open up at all different levels. To your point, though, I think those people that are also more willing to target a company or an industry that they're interested in and be willing to get in, maybe not in the ideal job they want, but take not always an entry-level job, but a job that's not ideal, but get in and then have the opportunity to prove themselves. That's where I've seen people in our company and other companies really shine, is when they're willing, and if they can afford to, because often it's a step back in maybe potential income or income that they've been making, but get in the door, because if you've really got the goods and got what it takes, it doesn't take a long time to really prove yourself and have people take notice.
No, absolutely.
And they're not willing to lose you once they've got a real talent on board.
It's really interesting because that's exactly how I went in. So when I was at Franklin Covey years ago, and this is a pretty interesting story for Todd. I was in sales, didn't want to be in sales, and then actually I left sales and started working with Stephen Covey on the book writing.
Yeah, I remember.
But for fun, I always wanted to be a trainer. So in the lunchtime, I would go do the new hire orientation training, and I would train everybody in the company on that. So some new recruiting officer guy comes through, who's really an old employee, I believe, named Todd Davis. Isn't that right? And you come through the training and see me just as a trainer. I wasn't a paid trainer, but my goal was someday, and I was young. I was way young, and like probably too young maybe to have been the trainer. But you just saw me as a regular Joe, liked it, and then I kept begging you, I really want to get a shot. I really want to get a shot. But then you got my name in the pot, and you let me audition. Dozen people auditioned, I think, and I got a job. But it was exactly that. It was me working for free, getting in an area I wasn't loving per se, and giving my blood. And then you'll see it. People will float up that are successful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a perfect. I had forgotten about that, but now as you bring it back, I remember your presentation. In fact,
yeah. Do you really? And I attribute it all to you because but you saw me. You didn't. You were already. I guess you already had the recruiting hat on. But anyway, it works. It's just. So I brought that up to this guy. I was talking to a guy at a speech last night, and he was like desperate. And I said, well, that's what I did. I just got in, and I just did it for free. And he says, well, what do you do when it's they no longer will let you be there for free? Like he's worn out. He's valuable. The guy even says he's super valuable, but I guess they can't just keep people around working for free.
Right. Well, or interned. And not to be harsh, but if you're there interning and working for free and someone hasn't picked up on that, then maybe you are misaligned. Maybe you're thinking you're really great in this field area, but people are good at recognizing sharp talents. So.
That's right. And you don't want to lose the talent. No. Once they're interned and trained and you know what they
You've
know
invested.
What they're doing.
Yeah, the company's invested a lot, and obviously the person's invested a lot.
So some of this is just having a little hope. I mean, you got to have enough hope and then and some self-awareness if you really are in the right place.
That's right.
Do you see that, I guess, what are you seeing are happening to the people that are employees? Are you seeing their quality going up? Is there, I would seem like to me, if there's tension in the market where we could replace you even easier than ever, are the employees bearing down and doing a better job?
Well, again, my opinion, but I think even when we aren't in a recession and when there are plenty of, I think star performers are star performers. They work hard regardless of whether how many offers they have or if there isn't anything else. But certainly when times get tough and people are losing jobs, everybody kind of steps it up a little bit to the level you're hoping they're doing all the time. So I'm thinking of certain top star performers in our company right now. Even during the toughest of times in the job market, they always have some options.
Yeah, they're always free.
That's not real encouraging for others out there, but that's,
I love that. There's a phrase, I think I even learned it there, that says superior performance fosters independence of action. Mm-hmm. So the better you are as a performer, the more independent and free you are. You can say no easier. You can open your options up. So one of the benefits, I guess, is you got to be a performer. You really got to hit the nail.
Yep. And whether you're in a job that, in your opinion, is way beneath you, but just to get into the right company, knock it out of the park. Just people take notice. That
is what I said. I said I'd show up late. I mean, I'd show up early, leave late, ask if you could do other things in the company. Say, hey, I'm a single guy. I'm 29. I got nothing else going on. Yeah. Can I stay late and wash whatever?
Yeah,
just wash whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, it's incredible. It's tough. Now give me some things. So you've seen a lot in your years. What are some things that are just absolute don't do?
Well,
and I guess that might even get into what you should do.
Yeah, and that's actually an easier way, I think. Sometimes I do a lot of coaching with some folks, trying to help them find jobs, or occasionally, unfortunately, when someone is displaced out of our company, trying to help them. And some of the things I've seen, and one would assume these are just with younger, less experienced employees or would-be employees, but I've really seen this with seasoned employees as well. I was thinking on the drive down here, some of the biggest, most common mistakes I've seen, and they sound very simple, and I could hear the listeners going, well, duh, I would never do that. But maybe your kids are doing that, and you don't know that. And that's why they're not getting the jobs. Something as simple as just getting to the place on time. You've got an interview, get there on time. And maybe do a test run the night before.
Yeah, think it through.
Make sure you're not going to
drive to the place.
Yeah. Another big one that again, these sound like common sense, but they're not always, is just are you appropriately dressed?
Yeah.
I see more and more candidates, seasoned people as well as new graduates come in, and my theory and philosophy is always go in a little bit overdressed.
Yeah.
No one ever dings you for wearing a tie or wearing a nice business suit.
Meanwhile, and just so everyone knows, you're sitting here in a tie.
Well, there you go.
See? And I'm in my tube top.
And I'm thinking you're looking pretty underdressed, man.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah, so don't, and some people will say to me, but if it's a real casual environment, I said, you know what? They will respect the fact that you came in dressed up. They're not going to say you didn't do your research and understand that we're a jeans and T-shirt kind of place.
Right.
Go in dressed up. It shows respect for the person that you're interviewing with.
That's a great idea.
People may laugh at this one, but especially with the topic you're talking about today, with younger folks and recent graduates that are having a hard time getting a job. Don't ever have mom or dad follow up. Now you're saying, who in the world would do that? You cannot believe
Does that happen?
The calls that we get from parents of MBA graduates and saying, "Hey, my son or my daughter applied for this," and people think, "Are you kidding me?" But
mom and dad, stay out of it.
Yeah. Kind of tied in with that, showing up with a friend is a little bit awkward for everyone. Now, often they don't have the friend come into the interview or ask, but even just having the friend sit in the lobby, it's a little bit unprofessional.
Like, is that your ride?
Yeah. Is that your ride, or is this how much confidence you do or don't have? Very common things. Don't ever show up without a resume.
Yeah.
And have a resume that you've had several people, friends, and hopefully people that are in professional positions look through and just give you suggestions on. But
what is the resume now? I mean, it seems like it's constantly changing and it's different.
And people I talked to as many recruiters, and they have different theories on this, and there used to be the rule of a one-page resume.
Yeah, I remember that.
I don't worry about that, nor does our director of recruitment or other folks. But what I would say is this. Just remember, the resume is to get the interview. The resume isn't to get the job.
No.
The resume is to get the interview. Yeah. And so too often I see people who have designed a resume that is trying to get the job. And so there's too much in there, and there's too much detail. And I've seen resumes that you can't really tell anything from it. It's the name and address.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I just keep in mind the resume is to get the job, to get the interview. I also am really big on cover letters with a resume. A cover letter meaning 2 paragraphs. There's not a hard and fast rule around that, but not even a page full, but 2 or 3 paragraphs. Because what a cover letter does, a resume is a little more, here's my education, here's bulleted of what extensive or limited experience I have. But the cover letter lets a recruiter into a little bit of your personality, because you can be conversationalist in the cover letter and say, hey, I'm very familiar with your company. I've watched it for years, or I know so and so works for your company. It lets me into a little bit of your personality before I've even met you. So cover letters, we have brought many candidates in based on how well written their cover letter is versus the resume.
It's more personal in a way, it feels like.
Absolutely.
The resume seems like to me something just that they're going to use too when they're interviewing you. So it almost should just say, what would you want brought up in your interview? Not everything.
That's right.
But what would matter to bring up? Okay, excellent. We're going to come back, Todd, because I want more ideas, more tools, and eventually, and two, I want to figure out, what do you kind of predict the future is? I mean, are we changing like online resumes, online videos? Are you seeing things like that now? Are there certain areas that we should probably worry more about? Should we be making sure we don't just have some general degree, but a very specific degree? We'll come back and talk more with Todd Davis, Executive Vice President, Chief People Officer from Franklin Covey Company. Stick with us, folks. We're going to get you a job one way or another right here on the Matt Townsend Show on Sirius XM 143 BYU Radio. Welcome back, everybody, to the Matt Townsend Show. We are talking about getting a job. Now, you parents out there, you may be noticing that your kids don't seem to have a chance of getting away from you ever. And if they don't, and you really want to do what you can to help them, it's a hard time. It's a hard time in the economy. It's a hard time with all these college-educated kids. Finding a job is not as easy as it used to be, obviously, and yet it's not impossible. We've got Todd Davis, who is an Executive Vice President, the Chief People Officer at Franklin Covey Company, a training and development leadership company. Todd's joining us, giving us some tools, some ideas. He's not an expert, even though he has 26 years in the business. But he doesn't like
just hangs around a long time.
He's also just a great guy that gets it. So, Todd, what else should we be doing? If I'm just the guy sitting there going, I guess everyone's going through the newspaper. Yeah. They're going through monster.com.
Yeah, hopefully they're not going through the newspaper.
I know, but
but they're online
a whole different
looking.
thing.
Yeah, so a couple other things. We were talking before the break, we were talking about just some faux pas that I had seen and seen not once in a while, but seen a lot. A couple of things that I recommended with some of the folks that I coach. There's a book. It's an older book out there. I apologize. I don't know when it was published. It's called 48 Days to Work You Love. The author is Dan Miller. And it's I think he may have been a pastor or some kind of religious leader, because it's interspersed with some scripture, which sounds really odd, and I thought it was odd when I first started reading it. So if that's offensive or bothers somebody, then
no. But you know what? They probably need a little scripture.
It is, that's right, a little hope.
Yeah.
But he has some of the most practical ways about getting a job, and they're basics, but they're so basic. I think we've forgotten them, and they're principle based, so they haven't gone out of style.
Like, what are some of the basics?
They're just like, research the industries and the companies you want to be in. Sometimes we get so hung up on, well, I don't see any jobs here. Well, what is it you really want to do? And then once you find those industries, it's that 6 or 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. You can find someone who knows someone who knows someone in that company. You absolutely can.
LinkedIn. Get on LinkedIn.
Well,
and
so that's the next thing. You talk about it is not very common anymore to get a resume in the mail or send resumes. Everything is online, and with the online, if you don't, and there's such great search engines out there that people think, well, doesn't everybody post there? Well, yeah, they do, but post yours there too. So on Monster.com, on Career Builder, and you just mentioned on LinkedIn. LinkedIn more and more is becoming a tool that we use, and I know other companies use, and
See, that's interesting, because I've heard people say, oh, LinkedIn, it's not even any good. But in a business world, it matters.
It is. I will tell you, we have found some of our finest candidates this past year through LinkedIn. And they weren't candidates that we looked up on LinkedIn, but through LinkedIn, when we started networking with companies in certain industries, we started talking to them and got into the door to their industry and found the real gold in those people. So LinkedIn is great. This book, 48 Days to Work You Love, it's got some very practical, I would highly recommend that.
Yeah, that sounds like a great book.
Especially for the audience you're talking about today, that some of the younger folks. There's a book and a tool that I use all of the time. It's the Gallup Strengths Finder. The book is Now Discover Your Strengths, and it was by Donald Clifton and Marcus Buckingham.
Yeah, those are great.
And then there's a second version, 2.0, that came out. And there are many surveys like this or surveys that are on there, but this is the best one I've found that really helps identify what your intuitive, your natural strengths are. And I will tell you, people that get the jobs, they understand themselves really well, what they're intuitively good at, and then they understand how to express that to a prospective employer.
That's big, isn't it?
And so this, if you have, anybody that's listening, if you have not taken the Strengths Finder, I would encourage you to do so, because it identifies now here I talk about it, so I think there's 32 identified strengths in there, and it shows you through these series of questions. There's no right or wrong answer. You probably have bits of all of those strengths, but what are the 5 top strengths that they've been in you, they've been with you since you were born,
they're innate,
naturally bubble to the top. And once you know what those are, it also gives you several examples. So when I'm in an interview as a candidate, I can express, well, are you familiar with the Strengths Finder? Let me tell you what my number one strength is, and let me tell you why I think that would be appropriate for this job. So in fact, let me give you a quick example,
Love it.
Matt, and not to talk too much about myself, but on mine, the number one strength is empathy for me.
Yeah.
And when I first read this book and found that out, everything made sense. I figured out why when I would walk in the door when I was 5 years old and somebody in our family was upset, I immediately started crying and I didn't even know what they were upset about. But it's just I have this gene in me that has me automatically empathize with other people.
Yeah.
Well, when I was interested in our company, Franklin Covey, when I was interested in going to work in the innovations department where we create all of our training materials and all of our presentations, when I was talking with the person that was doing the hiring there, I told him about the Strengths Finder. And I said, my number one strength is empathy. And let me tell you why I think that'd be so valuable in this role, because as we're out doing beta tests of new programs and that, I'm looking at it through the eyes of all the participants all the time. And I'm thinking, I wonder if somebody in this age bracket would relate to this experience or this exercise or this story. So you can use the Strengths Finder to really help sell yourself, but not in a, well, I think I'm really good at this or that. No, this is what the Strengths Finder says are my intuitive
interesting.
strengths.
And know your strength, and then know how to communicate what you're, because people want to know that. If you don't know, like, I love that as a question. So what do you feel are your greatest strengths?
Exactly.
Well, I'm on time.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right. I never had set out, nor do I really think of it now, as it was my goal to be an executive HR executive.
Right.
But I understand now why I gravitated more towards that, and that's because my second strength is my second strength is developer.
Okay, yeah.
And what I realized about that is that I want to make an income and have all, and grow in my own right, but I really thrive off of seeing someone else grow and develop their talents. And I love seeing people, and I can maybe see in them something that others haven't seen, and I love helping them figure that out. And so now it makes sense to me why I naturally gravitated towards the
and it's such a blind spot if not. So if I have a client who has literally been looking for a job for 2 years, and has started, I think, 7 or 8 or 9 of them. And hasn't been able to hold a job for 15 years. And part of it's because he's always wanted to be a salesman, because salesmen are the ones that make the money, but he's really a teacher. He just is a teacher. If he had just been a teacher 15 years ago, he'd be making probably better money and have a second job that would make really good money together. And,
Absolutely.
And it literally cost him his marriage. It cost him a lot of stuff because he just didn't know himself. So part of this is maybe you're not having the success because you don't know yourself. Maybe you're subtly self-sabotaging some things because you don't know what your talents really are. You want a job, but you can't sell with conviction or with integrity that this is the right job for you.
Yeah, a little misaligned with who you really are.
That's powerful.
Yeah, I agree.
And then communicate, too. That's huge.
Something else I would recommend, and behavioral interviewing has been around forever, and it's actually very helpful, even though it's old, and that is, tell me about a time when, Matt. Tell me about a time when, or have you ever had a confrontation with a former boss? Yeah. Tell me. Take a couple of minutes to just tell me about that experience. How did you handle that? The reason recruiters choose to use that form of questioning is because it's kind of hard to fake an experience. I mean, maybe you're a master liar, but so why I share that with you is that to your audience, to these candidates, think about a ton of stories before you go in for that interview. And of course, you've hopefully researched the company and researched who you might be interviewing with, but have several stories. Think of examples. You said the question earlier, what are some of your greatest strengths? Think through that question and then role play with someone.
Right.
And I strongly encourage this, and role play isn't thinking in my mind what I would say. It's saying the words out loud. It's talking to someone to give you feedback because that person will say, what did you mean by that? I don't even understand that.
Yeah.
So
Where are you
role
going?
play and say the
Yeah.
words, because even though you've thought the words or talked to yourself in the car, it'll be very difficult for them to come out. But think of numerous experiences. Think of a failure. It's very common. People like to hear about your strengths. They like to
your
hear of your
biggest
weaknesses. And don't think of a failure. I laugh whenever I hear of somebody saying, well, I'm told that I sometimes don't know when to quit. I work too hard. And I say to them, gosh, we wouldn't want that here. I say, tell me something you are not good at, because we're not, I'll share some with you, and I'll share them something, giving them permission. But so be prepared to be honest with the recruiter and show them something. Gosh, I really shine in this area. This is an area that I struggle in more. And
I guess maybe then we need some skills interviewing. Get out there doing as many interviews as you can possibly do.
Absolutely.
It is a skill set. It's interesting.
Yeah.
It is. It's a job.
Well, and I'll tell you, on that last point, employers would much rather hire someone who knows themselves well than they would hire someone who thinks they're good or possibly is good at everything.
Good at something,
I get uncomfortable when we're really big on someone, but yet they don't have a flaw. And I'm not talking about someone who's really arrogant. Of course, you don't want that either. But someone who can't think of an area that they really, are excited to improve in. If someone can't think of that, I think you don't know yourself very well.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Well, and it's interesting. And then if you don't know yourself, how do you know others? You know what I mean? It's a powerful thing. It really is more about being a confident you. It's kind of being you. Mm-hmm. You have to be you, and you cannot not communicate. So if you're not feeling comfortable in you, you're not going to feel comfortable in a chair in front of someone judging you.
That's exactly right. In fact, our director of recruitment and I, we came up with this phrase a couple of years ago. We call it the barbecue factor. And after we interviewed a series of candidates for a particular position, finalists, I said to Erin, our director of recruitment, I said, Erin, if she lived in your neighborhood and you're having a neighborhood barbecue, because her answers were perfect, flawless to everything we asked. I said, if you had a barbecue, would you invite her? He said, I probably wouldn't. And it wasn't anything we could identify. No. We just called it what you're. She was not comfortable with herself, and therefore wasn't comfortable with you. And it was just
you're not coming
something
to my
you thought. Yeah, you're not. Coming. So we have kind of a filter. It's not the final filter, but we have a filter called the barbecue factor too. Just is someone,
love it.
And it doesn't mean are they a fit? Are they like us? Do they fit into the culture? But are they comfortable? Do they know themselves well enough that they're comfortable with themselves, and therefore they'll be comfortable with those that they work with?
Brilliant. I think. I mean, that is a brilliant, and it makes sense. Why would I hire you to be working with me daily if you're not going to come to my barbecue?
That's right. And I tell candidates that. I say, just remember this. Of course, you have to have the competency and the skill sets, but people want to hire people they enjoy working with. Not people that are just like them, but people they enjoy working with. So, and it's not saying go in there and be Mr. or Ms. Nice person, but be comfortable, be engaging. Be someone they want to be with every day.
Todd, what do you say to people? Because I'm sure you do this all the time. Where they just didn't get the job, and you're giving them good feedback. What do you say to them? Now you're turned them away. Mm-hmm. What advice do you give to these people that are out there listening that have been turned away, aren't sure really, am I worth it? They're starting to feel down. Mm-hmm. What do you say? What's your pep talk?
Well, I don't know if this is a pep talk. Let me think about the pep talk for a minute, but here's a little bit of advice. We have had some great candidates who we've turned away, and they have, in a very mature fashion, say, could I just spend 5 minutes with you? I've been looking for a while now, or whatever, and please don't be shy or worry about hurting my feelings. I would love to know what because I made it to the so far in the interview process, what was it that differentiated the candidate you chose from me? And when they'll set it up like that, where I know they really want honest feedback, then I can say, you know what? Here were the things. The candidate we chose, they had done extensive research on the topic of what we're going to be hiring. Or I'm making that up.
But whatever.
But we can give them honest feedback, and it again, back to my developer strength, it makes me feel good because I know they're thinking, oh, great, okay, that's what I'm going to do on that. I'm going to do more of this or that. So that's some advice when you don't get the job. Be sincere, and make sure that the recruiter, whoever gave you the bad news, feels very comfortable in sharing the feedback. And if they just say, you know what, it was so close, then take them for their word and stay after that type of a job or that type of industry.
Cool. Todd, I want you to maybe come through. You have 5 more minutes, 10 more minutes to be with us?
Yeah, we're not putting people to sleep.
No, we're going to go through one more break. We're going to bring Todd back because we're going to come back. We're going to give you where the jobs are. We have a report from one of our producers about where the jobs exist out there. So stick with us. You're listening to the Matt Townsend Show right here on Sirius XM 143 BYU Radio. Welcome back, everybody, to the Matt Townsend Show. We are talking jobs here, how to get jobs, what are the tips, the ideas that seem to work, and maybe the more important question is, where are all of these jobs, right? So throughout the show, we've been getting into all the difficult stuff for college grads and how hard that is, but there are a few college majors that seem to be doing just fine, and they might not be doing as great as you think.
Every child is asked, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Some children are inventive, like my little brother Eli, who at age 6 would always reply, "Superman!" Other children might be more practical, replying instead, "I want to be a doctor." Yet, the fact remains that most children do not answer that question thinking about what jobs will be in demand when they grow up. In fact, I think most college students, finally on their own for the first time, don't really think about the majors that will yield the highest probability of getting hired, preferring instead to match their interests to a major. However, in our current economic downturn, should we first be looking at in-demand jobs when choosing our desired field? I spoke with Bill Brady, the director of the Marriott School of Business's Career Center at Brigham Young University, about that very idea. Where are all of the jobs?
Well, according to a study by the National Association of Colleges and Employers, they found that about 69% of the total responding employers were looking for engineers, 63% for business graduates, 53% for accounting graduates, and 49% for computer science majors.
Near the bottom of the list is liberal arts, with only 13% of employers looking for their skills. So that begs the question, what makes a liberal arts major so different from an engineering major?
As students choose a liberal arts major, they are not committing to one or another area.
So employers look for people who are committed to a specialty field, something they can own, something they can do that no one else can. And the same goes for trade services.
Right now, there's very strong demand for people with technical skills. So plumbers, they're in demand. Electricians, they're in demand. Landscapers are in demand. So those areas have opportunity. But if they can get a mechanic who has a mechanical engineering degree, that's a plus.
So whether you are a senior in high school, still curious of where college will take you, or if you are a college graduate looking for a job, figure out where your specialty lies. If you are really good at pulling weeds, it looks like landscapers might scoop you up. And next time someone asks you, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" maybe "Whatever you want me to be" is the best answer.
Whatever you want me to be. Well, we've brought around our good friend Todd Davis, the executive vice president, chief people officer at Franklin Covey. We wanted to give him a little bit more of the last say. So, Todd, as we're wrapping this up, parents trying to find jobs for their kids, or at least keep them motivated to get jobs, and just people out there struggling, what would you say? What do we need to remember?
Yeah, well, just a couple of final thoughts, and if I had been looking for a while, I think the last thing I'd want to say is hang in there. But that's what I say. Hang in there. Don't give up. People are getting jobs. I think the networking, and people use that term and hear it all the time. But I'm telling you, somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody that's in the company you work for. And I was just telling Matt on the break, whenever anyone brings a resume to me or gives me the name of someone and says, "Hey, if you get a minute, would you mind talking to this person?" That's come through some kind of a network. That puts that person at an advantage. This person I don't even know, because always. I feel a sense of obligation to the person, the employee that came to me and said, "I've got this friend, or I've got this neighbor, or I heard about somebody," and so that's a way of getting your name on the top of the pile. So I just would say that networking, and you can get in. You can find someone who knows someone within every company.
I get it all the time. In fact, interesting. I had a friend, HR kind of director level type, moved in by my house and lost his job the minute he got here. His company got bought out, and they no longer needed 2 HR departments. He was unemployed. But as an HR guy, he's just started networking, and he found a job at a company, actually now come to find out an incredible company with huge opportunity. Mm-hmm. And he saw that I knew somebody that was at that company. And then he saw it on my LinkedIn.
Right.
and then called me and said, so do you know this guy? Because I'm trying to apply for a job here. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, would you ever be willing to forward my resume on? I'm like, absolutely. Forward it on. This guy goes in, gets a job, has been there 2 or 3 years, and is now a senior vice president for a 4,000-person company.
That's awesome.
And, by the way, has hired dozens of people we know. And so it is. In the end, I guess it comes down to relationships, doesn't it? The relationship to yourself, knowing your talents, your skills, and relationships with others.
Yep. I agree with that 100%. The other thing I would just say is be realistic. And sometimes we have to swallow our pride a little bit. And if I've been looking in an industry or for a particular type of job for a long time and I'm just not getting it, be willing to step back and say, you know what, maybe I'll try something else to get into the company or to get in somewhere, and it'll open up a whole new world for me that I didn't even think about. So be realistic about that. If you've been looking for a really long time in a specific area or industry and you're just not getting it, maybe the universe is trying to tell you something.
Yeah. Maybe it's time to just go. Did you hear my story about the guy that just lives out in the woods and
I did.
doesn't have anyone?
I did.
And you probably don't ever need to go that far. There is hope. I love that. Appreciate you, Todd, for being here.
Thanks
for
being
finding
invited.
me so many years ago.
Yeah, well.
I don't know where it got
you
me.
found yourself.
You're a good man. That's why we wanted to have you. Todd Davis, Executive Vice President and Chief People Officer of Franklin Covey Company. Good man. He knows his stuff. Now, don't be discouraged. I know it's easy to just sit here and give you all these ideas, but you know what? There's hope. Executive Vice President says there's hope. There are jobs out there. They're yours. They're even yours to have, but you just have to find creative ways to get there. Know yourself. Figure out who you are. Don't expect anyone else out there to be able to connect or to do more for you than you yourself. It's not even going to be just luck. Sometimes it's going to be a lot of hard work, a lot of focus, a lot of knowing who you are. Remember that. Stick with us. We're here every day, Monday through Friday. We want to be there to help you and your family, your loved ones, take their lives to the next level. Thanks for joining us. Again, stick with us. We're here every day, and go and get a job if you can. And if not, just keep listening. We'll give you more tools right here on the Matt Townsend Show, Sirius XM 143 BYU Radio.